rustic, farmhouse, or traditional. Whatever the choice, it's up to you. Stone River Furniture at Classic Interiors is truly a piece of craftsmanship that will last for generations and be the center of attraction at any gathering. Classic Interiors designers can personally help you select the pieces that will make your home a classic. Check out the new Classic Interiors showroom on the corner of First and Holmes and Idaho Falls.
Hey KID crew, we are coming to you from the beautiful Heroes Defense Conference Room. This is a gorgeous facility here, and this is a special edition of Table Talk, and we are fortunate to have some of our local first responders as well as the FDNY, and these guys have some real firsthand knowledge of what went down on 9/11/2001, and they're here to share some perspective with us. And today we're really going to focus on that commitment that we made, it'll be 23 years ago tomorrow, to never forget and to let those lessons push us towards increased patriotism and unity in our country. So we'll really zero in on that. Right off the bat, I want to give you an opportunity to meet this incredible panel. I'm so excited because we have a full table. We've got so many incredible thought leaders around this table. So we'll start right here with Travis from Heroes Defense.
Travis Miller, co-founder of Heroes Defense, president and CEO of Quality Associates. Glad to see.
Hello, Fire Chief Dwayne Nelson, Idaho Falls.
I'm Tony Glenn, I'm the law enforcement captain from the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office.
Stephen Berg, Deputy Chief Operations for Bonneville County Fire District.
Garrett Mickle from Paul Davis Restoration, also co-founder of Heroes Defense.
Bryce Johnson, Idaho Falls Police Department.
Rich Duffy, FDNY.
David Turner, Lieutenant, retired, FDNY.
Kevin Callan, retired captain, FDNY.
All right, thank you all for being here. So tomorrow is a really big day because the memorial, the 9/11 memorial, is going to be unveiled at the Idaho Falls Fire Department, and it's a dedication ceremony. And this is a really special memorial. So let's talk a little bit about that. We'll start right here with you, Chief Nelson. Tell us what people can expect tomorrow at this ceremony.
Yes, thanks, Joan. Yeah, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., we're going to be dedicating and unveiling the 9/11 memorial there in front of Station 1 headquarters, 343 East Street. And really, it's just a memorial to never forget 9/11. There's never really a great time to set a memorial in place, and 23 years is a really good time. We've got FDNY folks here to help celebrate that and dedicate that memorial, and it's going to be an amazing event for the community. Really just showcase what our community is all about, and showcase the artwork and the dedication that this community really does show when they celebrate something.
And there's something that makes this memorial extra special. Anybody want to talk a little bit about that?
Want me to take it? Sure.
Everyone's so polite.
So, I think every memorial is a little bit different, right? And it's representative of the city. I think when you look at a lot of the ones around the country, they're paid for by the city, or they're put together by some organization or some large company paid for it. What I personally love about this is, Heroes Defense, we were able to help fund this and help bring this to fruition, but every dollar that came to pay for this, that put this together, came from our community. So Heroes Defense gets to be the conduit, and we get to be the face, but it's really a representation of our community. And so, whether it's $5 or people that came to the event or whatever, there's a million different ways people got involved, and that's I think what makes this so unique, is that it's a memorial built by the community for the community, and I think that makes it a little bit more connected. I mean, you guys answer that, but as a first responder, knowing that the community came together to get this thing done, and not just one, but we have another one that is getting built too. That I think is what makes it extra special. And as you said, it's one of those things when we first talked about building this, It's like, do we wait till the 25th anniversary or something like that? We're trying to get it done for the 20th. And reality is that time is not our friend. So, you know, the sooner we get these things built, the sooner we get in the community, the faster we start to engage with that next generation and keep that memory going. So that's I think the part that for us is particularly important.
Right, to know that our community cared enough to really step up and have somewhere where people can go. It can be a place of healing and hope and remembrance, and a way to really make sure that we are never forgetting. And there is something that connects this, right, to Ground Zero. Captain, yes,
As far as the steel goes?
yes,
The steel that is going to be unveiled tomorrow was from the Trade Center. I was just talking to the chief here. He gave me a number. We were going to find out which building it came from, because there are numbers on there. What's important about having that, Idaho, unfortunately, as many other states and things, they're considered flyover states. But these flyover states, quote unquote, are actually where most of the people in this country have true feelings about America, about our beliefs and strengths. This is where they come from. And it was seen we have a Tunnelton Towers Museum. I think Travis will probably mention it a little bit later. That's here in town. That was also funded by Heroes Defense Foundation. And their stories and their tears, as we told our stories, shows the commitment of the community to never forget and, you know, have faith in our country and America.
I think that's absolutely incredible to know that there is that direct connection, that steel, to know where it comes from. I think that just absolutely makes it even a little bit more sacred. What I want to do right now is just kind of go around the room, and we're going to start right here with you, Captain Calhoun. And I would love it if you could just, each of you, kind of give a brief idea as to what you think it's going to take to make sure that this younger generation understands the significance of what happened on 9/11, and what can each of us do to be part of that commitment to never forget.
Well, when you think about it, this is 23 years. 23 years is 2 generations out from the World Trade Center events. So it's important for you as parents to explain that day, just like Pearl Harbor was explained to me and how it happened. My wife lost her uncle at Pearl Harbor, so it was very important in her family that everything was understood there, and just like it's important here. Although that event happened in New York, the effects were felt around the country. It could have been somebody in the tower that was a long lost cousin, family member. You know, it wasn't a New York City event. It was a USA event, and that, you know, and for that, we'll never forget. We promised our families of in our firehouse that we'd never forget. Unfortunately, in my firehouse, we lost 6 guys. We had our whole battalion went, Engine 235, Engine 217, Engine 230, Ladder 105. Out of that grouping, only 4 people came back. Everyone else was killed that day. So it was a catastrophic event for our battalion. It would be like you sitting at a table with 12 of your best friends. You walk out the door, and 8 of them disappear. You never see them again. Unfortunately, we never had recoveries for any of those people in our battalion. And we said we'd never forget them. This is our pledge, and this is why we do what we do, to never forget them, have their spirit live on, and to help people to make sure that they don't forget.
Thank you so much, and I think that really brings it into perspective to think about that. You walk out the door with 12 people, and many of them don't come back. Lieutenant, how about you? What do you feel could be done to make sure that this younger generation understands the significance?
Well, just like Kevin said, it starts at home, it starts with the family, parents. Well, what's going on right here in your city with the Tunnel to Towers mobile museum is exactly what's needed too, because we get to see firsthand these kids coming in, and now the kids that are coming in, the teachers were of age, so you know, we get to talk to the teachers, and then we could find out what was it like when they were younger, you know, where they remember where they were, how old they were, and we could hear, like, you know, whether or not when they were in school, did they keep the TVs in the classroom or did they take it out? And a lot of people where they didn't see anything when they were younger, they don't know anything about it. And a lot of school curriculums don't even teach anything about it, or if they do, it's a bare minimum. And this Tunnel to Towers mobile exhibit that travels the country and has been doing it for 10 years, it's an absolute gold mine of information. And that's kind of like a, you know, if someone's never heard of it, you know, or know anything about it, or people that lived it and now they might not have remembered anything or not thought about it in 23 years, now that they're going to relive it again. And that's how we can, you know, the word never forget is one way of doing it.
I love that we have that mobile museum right here. It's such a big deal to even have it. To be able to have the stars align and have it on 9/11 is truly remarkable. And how about you, Captain Duffy?
You know, one of the things that I learned just working at the museum is that, and I looked this up the other day, Tunnels to Tower, T2T.org has age-appropriate educational stuff on their website. So if you want to teach your kids something, you want to teach an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, you can go right to that website and you can pull up that age group and it'll help you teach them something that's within their age that they're going to understand and not get maybe too emotional about. I thought that was very important. Another thing, one of the women I spoke to told me she does every 9/11, she puts the History Channel on all day because they do 9/11 stuff all day. And I thought that was very important, just a way, like every year, remind everybody, and even everybody in your family, everybody in your house, about what happened that day and how important it is to remember.
So true. And don't forget, you can still have an opportunity to go through that museum. You can go tonight, 4 to 7, tomorrow, 4 to 7, and tomorrow there'll be a special ceremony at 6 p.m. and you're gonna get the tour from the guys who were right there and can add some very unique perspective to all of that. Chief Johnson, good to have you here.
Thank you. So 23 years ago, that's not even that long, 23 years, that seems like it was yesterday, but there's not a lot of us still left working that were working 23 years ago. And I remember, because I like you talk about how it was in New York, it was a national event, and I was working in another city, and it became a ghost town after 9/11 for quite several days. I mean, there were no cars on the road, there was no one on the road. I guess now that we've gone through COVID, we got used to that. It was kind of like a pre-COVID, but then no one was out, no one was doing anything, everyone was scared, everyone was home. I think it was 3 or 4 days after before finally someone was out again, and there was interaction again. And everyone was just hunkered up at home because there was fear, there was anger. And I think most agencies around the country shrouded the badge at that time. Usually it's only state by state. I know we did, Rye's working that, even though the police officer and firefighter were from New York, it was such a big event that we shrouded the badge for all of it. And, you know, we were about to get the Olympics about a short time later, and it changed the whole world for us, you know. Everything for the Olympics all of a sudden changed, and all the focus of what they were having. And so it just became a matter of everyday life. At the time, I was also serving in the Naval Reserve, you know, and that completely changed what we were doing. And I think that we said we'd never forget, but how many of us remember Pearl Harbor Day? They said they would never forget. As time goes by, to help people to keep remembering. So what we try to do, especially for our young police officers that weren't working, and some of them can't even, I got police officers younger than 24, I mean, they weren't even alive. And and even like 30-year-olds that were, what, 6 years old. So we try to remember their sacrifice and their dedication by doing a still climb every year. Our SWAT guys went out in full SWAT duty gear, kind of, because that's how the firefighters did it that day. 2,100, and I had this memorized, started in the brains, but it's a lot of steps. And they did it in full turnout gear, and the police officers responded in their full gear. So our SWAT guys, none of them were alive. Most of them weren't. They'll go out and they'll climb 2,000 steps. Most of our patrol officers will, and so we try to keep them to remember kind of what they were doing and having them participate during this time.
That's a really proactive way to kind of keep that commitment and keep the focus where it should be. And Garrett, how about you?
Well, Sunday night, had the opportunity to take my 5 kids over there to the exhibit, and they range from 16 to 6, and got to spend some time with Kevin. And I've known Kevin for a number of years, but he hasn't met my children, and my children were able to sit and listen to Kevin's stories. And on our way home, it was kind of a conversation about, hey, what did you guys learn here? You know, at that young age, what did you take away from that experience? And to them, it was just, again, they're heroes. They're heroes, and amazing what. Again, my oldest daughter made a comment, you know, we've heard about all the things through the news or through the textbooks or anything, but to hear Kevin describe what his guys did, and it was so much more personal to him, she said it made all the difference to her as a 16-year-old, who obviously wasn't alive at that time. But I believe it really impacted, and so to answer your question, what do we need to do? It hinges on the education. And you know, these gentlemen who have had the opportunity to share firsthand those experiences, those are priceless. And so we're grateful to have them here in this town. And for anybody who hasn't had a chance to get there, you'll miss a priceless opportunity to come and listen to these stories.
I love that you brought up the stories, because our brains really are wired to learn through stories. There's a lot of data that backs that up, and these stories, it's important to keep them out there so that those stories can continue inspiring younger generations. And Stephen.
Yeah, so not to throw any jabs, but I'm probably the youngest person. But it was kind of a significant event. You know, I was still in high school when it happened, and woke up in the morning, saw, you know, my parents just kind of glued to the TV. You know, I was waiting for the bus, and they're just trying to figure out, you know, what was going on. And, you know, plane hit the second tower at that point, and so, you know, we're like, you know, is this, you know, pretty much confirmed, you know, what we thought was going on. So I went to school, and pretty much throughout the whole day was just room to room watching the TV, right? And, you know, again, I was young enough that I didn't really like understand the significance of it quite yet. You know, I had an idea, but when we started equating that to, like, you know, like what you guys were saying, you know, Pearl Harbor is kind of our generation's Pearl Harbor, basically. And so being in the fire service, because I joined about 3 years later, in 2003, 2004, when I got on with Hammond, that was kind of their thing, is they actually sent some people to Ground Zero to help with some of the recovery efforts and stuff like that. And so it was kind of neat that from a department standpoint, like, they wanted to never forget, right? And so most of our trucks have like a logo we kind of made up that says "Never Forget 343." Our ladder truck has a big banner on it. But basically, being the part of the training side, like Chief Johnson was saying, you know, we get people now that, you know, are born, you know, less than when that happened. And so trying to explain to them, you know, the significance that it has in the fire service, as well as, you know, that national event, is huge. And so we try and do like a static display every year. We'll usually do some sort of program. We're kind of joining with Apple Falls this year for their memorial presentation. But we'll have, again, a static display. You know, you guys are more welcome to come out and take a look at that as well. So
Another proactive approach to really just keeping that memory alive. And Captain Tony.
So for me, I think, and it's been touched on quite a bit here today, but I think it's the community aspect of it. I was lucky enough Sunday to take three of my four kids to the memorial, the traveling memorial from Tunnels to Towers, and I have a 7-year-old that was very, very intrigued, reading everything that he could read, sucking up everything that he could suck up. The work that Heroes Defense done as far as bringing this to the forefront of the community, bringing the memorials in, all of those things I think is fantastic. With my 7-year-old, last year he was in 1st grade, and I remember him coming home on September 11th and asking questions because they did talk about it in school. I just think that speaks to the community here within Bonneville County and Idaho Falls, because there's work being done by Heroes Defense, by the police department, by the sheriff's office, by the fire departments. For years, I've driven down South Allen Road with my kids to see the turnouts in the driveway and the big American flag hung from the fire department's fire truck. My kids love driving by and seeing it and telling the stories. So again, I think it really comes back to the community and the support of this community here, that I think makes this such a great place, and one place that I don't think we'll ever forget.
And that, Tony, is just another reason why you don't want to miss this incredible opportunity to go through this museum. You're going to learn things, you're going to get a perspective that is going to stay with you, no doubt. And Chief.
Yeah, so, that day was just like everybody, a day that, is etched in our mind, kind of. I was holding my daughter, she was just about a week old then. I was still home with her after she was born, and just watching the news and watching it all unfold. My little sister actually had just gone to NYU. She had been there for less than a month actually, and in the dorms there when the towers were struck. And so it was days before we could actually even get a hold of her. The school did a great job. We knew she was okay, but we didn't know where she was. We didn't know where they put her and if she could go back. She wasn't able to go back to her dorm for just because of the dust and for months. And so she still tells stories of she was on a down street and just the silence just nonstop. And so it was just one of those things that it impacts us. As these guys all have said, it impacted the country, not just New York. In some way, all of us were attached somehow to something that was happening there, whether we were flyover or not. And so, one of the things with this memorial over the last several years, working with Travis and Paul Davidson Qualtech and Heroes Defense to try to get it built, was not just for the remembrance of 9/11, but really, I was also in the National Guard then, and it just is a changing of moment in time for the military, police, fire. It was a changing event for our country. And so, one of those things that the memorial does, Tunnels to Towers does, is keeps that service-oriented, thought process that we're losing in this country. It is one of those things that we have to continue to, the positions that we're all in, to continue to try to drive that service orientation so that the younger generation and those people behind us want to join the fire service or want to join the police department, the sheriff's office, go into public safety, become first responders, join our military, and really the community, memorial that we're building really is somewhere that they can go and not just remember 9/11, but remember all of the, first responders and public safety and what it means to give back.
And I think you're right on point. I think some of our young people are perhaps going to be really inspired as they're at that memorial, and it may strike something within them that they think, yeah, I want to do this. I want to be part of something so honorable. And as you were talking about your sister, it really kind of struck a chord with me, because I remember back when this happened, my daughter was just a few months old, holding her and watching all of this. And one of the things that just really hit me hard was the agony and the pain of so many families waiting and hoping for news. And as hours passed, some of that dwindling. And I think it's easy to sometimes forget about that. We just kind of look at it in a broad spectrum, but when we really stop and think the emotional toll that that would have taken. And Travis, you have done a lot to make this happen, as well as Garrett through Heroes Defense.
Yeah, I mean, and Jesse, can't forget Jesse.
Oh yes.
He had to drive home for the first time in a number of days, so he drove back and he couldn't make it again. But you know, I think we talked about this last time, but I think that, you know, as I was just out of college, and even then I was 22 years old, 21 years old when this happened, and I remember everything about it. Where I was actually didn't have a job or money, didn't know what I was doing. I was sleeping on my aunt's couch in between trying to start a business, and you know, redirected my life. But I remember for the years after that, even at age 21, I watched this Never Forget, and I've watched it for the last, you know, that whole process. And it wasn't until I started working with FDNY that I kind of, and I think this is a lot of what we just, you know, in that process, there's a lot of things that happened that day, a lot of stories, a lot of things that happened. It wasn't about, in my mind, the towers or the attack on the towers, because you see people talk about that and they go, well, why would you want to remember that? Why would you want to remember all the death and the dismay? And so even for me at that age, I was like, well, why would we never forget that? I mean, that's what you want to do is move past bad stuff, right? And so, and even as it's been on the news and I've seen some of the online comments, you see there's a lot of that younger youth that does the same thing, like, why do we want to remember this? And if you think about it in the aspect of, well, we were attacked by, you know, terrorists in America. If you think about the aspect, I can understand that perspective. And to these guys' point, education is what eliminates all of that and changes that perspective. Because when you start to educate yourself and your children and the next generation, it wasn't about towers getting hit by a plane. It was about first responders that ran towards that day and made conscious decisions to try to save lives in spite of their own. And that's representative of the American spirit, it's representative of first responders' character, it's representative of, frankly, what we need in this country, and in our communities, and in our families, and in the people we surround ourselves with. That is what we need as a country to promote and remember and honor, right? And so, you know, you listen to these guys' stories, and every time I've known Kevin for 18 years, and every time I listen to him or talk about this, there's a new story or a new aspect or something that the public's never heard. And so you listen to these guys talk about how they're still continuing to do this, and I mean, I can only imagine how painful it is to share those things, and even 20 years later, you know, we're starting to hear more and more about those things, but it's so important because if you take your 7-year-old in there and he's like, why would we want to remember a tower, you know, falling, but you can educate him that there are heroes in the community, and this is what a hero is, and this is what heroes really are, and it comes down to your decisions and your character. And then you can show that on 9/11, you know, yes, there were 403 people that perished that were representative of that character, but there was also, you know, tens of thousands of people across the country that were doing little things all over the country. And to this day, they still do it in their own communities, right? So I think that's the important part, and that's what we do try to do with Heroes Defense, is try to change that perspective and bring opportunities to educate the public that, you know, it's easier to teach your kid what a hero is than it is to teach them all the different things about the ins and outs about 9/11 and the event. But if you can utilize that in a way where they can understand what a hero is, then our kids want to be heroes again.
Right, and we definitely need that.
And we definitely need them. Yep.
We sure do. As you were talking, Travis, about them running towards that, I think that's so significant. And over the past 23 years, for me, when I think about the word courage, I think that what happened on 9/11 is what courage looks like. And it came out in some of the stories that you guys have shared that they knew going in that they might not go home. And they absolutely could have chosen to turn and run the other way, but they didn't. They ran towards that, and they were committed to saving as many people as they can, and that really is, in my book, what courage looks like. I want to give each of you the opportunity, and I know it's so sensitive, so I want to be sensitive to that, but I know you have some incredible stories that could help us understand this in even a better way and inspire people to really make that conscious effort to not forget. So I just want to open it up. If any of you have a story that you would love to share, we would love to hear it.
I'll give you one. My company, Engine 235, we lost six firemen, one of them being a battalion chief, lieutenant, and 4 firefighters. On that day, one of the firefighters, the senior firefighter, Larry Velling, everybody was on the rig. Before they left, turned around to all the guys, we had young guys there, probationary firemen, that, guys, listen, this is as bad as it gets. All the firemen are going to die today. There is no question about it. Let's not be one of them. Let's stay together. We work like a team. Engine 235 was in a very busy area in the ghettos of Brooklyn. They turned around. They knew what they were having to do, and they went in there and did it. Lieutenant Stephen Bates was the officer. He died that day. He turned around. There was another firefighter still there, because this was at the changing doors. He tried to get on the rig, because normally, there's a fire during the changing doors. Guys jump on the rig because it's fire in the area, they'll go, always have a good extra hand, stretch a line or whatever. He turned around to the guy, who happened to be my friend's son, and he said, Kevin, you're not going. I'm only taking the crew that I have to take. And anybody who went there in the early stages, I firmly believe they knew that there was a strong probability that they weren't going to come home. There were 6 probationary firefighters that were killed there on September 11th. They graduated that Friday before. That was their first day and their first fire, and they all died.
Wow. So powerful.
Something similar, my firehouse, Engine 54, Ladder 4, Battalion 9, we lost all 15 guys that were working. And like Kevin said, we lost so many guys throughout the whole department because it was changing tours, and there was no one really staying behind. In my firehouse, we actually had a fireman, John Tipping, and we had a fire the night before on the 10th, and he ended up getting hurt at the fire. He got burned by the side of his face, so they put him on medical leave, and he had to go to the doctor the next day, the fire department medical doctor. So since he had to go, he just stayed in the firehouse that night. But then when the alarm came in to respond to the trade center, he jumped on the rig. He wasn't even technically working. He could have just, he said, nope, see you guys, I'm off today, but he jumped on the rig. But that was a never-ending story. Every firehouse had stories like that where they responded and lost people, they lost more because it was a change of tours. And one of the other guys that we lost in the firehouse, Joe Angelini, he was in Ford truck, and he also lost his dad, who was in Rescue 1. So father and son both died in 9/11.
I mean, both of your stories just illustrate that commitment and that courage, that bravery to step into danger, to save people that you don't even know. That's inspiring on so many levels.
Firehouse that I was working at there, we didn't lose anybody. We had an engineering truck company. I was working in the truck company. The engine company was on their way to the trade center, and they got the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel right before the towers collapsed, so they got turned around. So we didn't lose anybody, but we lost maybe 10 or 12 guys in our battalion, so we had a lot of loss, obviously. But anything that happened that day, and you guys know this, you still have to be first responder. The guy who was the boss in the truck company, because the truck company didn't respond, because we had no engine, he said, go down to the basement and get some old hose and throw it on the rig. An hour later, we had a basement job a couple doors down. These guys hooked up to the hydrant, put it out, cleaned it all up, put it all away. Didn't even make it walk. Because that's what you have to do on days like that, right? And we knew, I knew when I got there, they tried to kind of start getting us organized. They kind of penned us all in an area, trying to figure out how we're gonna set up some teams and how we're gonna go start the rescue operation. And after what, an hour or so of that, the guys were like, "Chief, you guys are not getting this done." We just moved the barricades to their own teams and went in and started to search for people and dig where we could and try to figure it out.
These stories are truly, truly powerful. I've got to believe that for your families, that had to be an incredibly trying time. How did they help you through all of that?
I'll say it's, we got that to the Trade Center at 10:30 in the morning, and we worked straight through for 12 hours, 12 and a half hours. We would just lay on a desk in one of the other buildings close, but we decided we'd go back to the firehouse, regroup and find out what's going on. Maybe somebody else found those guys. You know, maybe they got some information. So they didn't. So at 1:45 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, we said, well, we have to go to the families. So we sent 2 guys to each house to knock on their door and say, listen, we don't know if they're dead or not, but, you know, we know they're missing. I had a girl, Danielle, she was 8 months pregnant. I said, I'll take her, because we figured she would be the worst. She had 2 other kids at that time. Went to her parents' house, got them up, went to a local volunteer firehouse in the area where they lived, because everybody was on standby. I don't know how it was out here. There was just that height alert where they just had to be there. Brought the ambulance to the house at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. Their chiefs came. They stayed down the block, and we knocked on the door. And the only thing I remember saying is, "Oh my God." I just said, "We don't know." Just saying they're missing right now. We're not sure, because they took hundreds of people to New Jersey by boat. It could have been there. You know, nobody knows where anybody is right now. We just know that, you know, right now they're missing. You know, I put their names in on the list of missing firefighters. So there was a list that they were promulgating within the first 10 hours, just trying to get an idea what was going on. And in all honesty, you know, mothers and with pregnant women, they know they have to nurture their kids and take care of their kids. And she was a trooper, unbelievable. She said, "Okay, I have to do this, I have to do this." We had a memorial service for her. She said, "We're doing it this day." He goes, "Thursday, I'm gonna have the baby delivered." You know, what do they call that?
C-section.
You know, huh?
C-section.
Yeah. Induced. She goes, "And I want you there." So when the baby was being born, I was there. She came out, and you know, we continued on.
It had to be so tough to have to break this kind of news to families. And, you know, as you were talking, Captain, it made me realize that there were other heroes too. Those families who had to step up and keep going for the sake of their other children. That's heroic as well.
I'm a first-generation firefighter. As a result of this, my son became a firefighter, and my daughter became the EMT for the New York City Fire Department. My son is actually out here now fighting the wildland fires. The Salmon Fire, I believe it is. Yeah, he came out with 16 firefighters this past Wednesday, and we had for 16 or 18 days fighting it.
You have to be so proud of that. That is
Very
incredible.
much, and paying it forward and never forgetting, you know, New York City Fire Department's come all over this country, assisting other fire departments, and it was our way of paying back, because I couldn't tell you how many fire departments just came walking up. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Hundreds and hundreds of them. So this is just our way of giving back.
It is that supportive culture that is so impressive. Either of you have anything along that line that you would love to share?
Well, as Kevin said, I mean, with me personally, with the horrors we saw in the first day or two, it was no comparison. The hardest thing was to talk to the wives on the phone. And, you know, although I was friends with all 15 of the guys, I was real tight with, you know, a good handful of them. So the phone calls were getting directed to me, and then slowly they were coming into the firehouse. And you had to give them hope. I mean, because if we weren't there, we'd be down the pile, come back, get on the phone with them, and you'd have to give them hope, you know, because there is still a chance, you know, within the first day. You know, there's voids and lots of areas that are not even touched or covered yet, you know, that we have to get to. And, you know, but as the days were getting longer and going into weeks, it was, you know, it was getting harder and harder, but we still gave them a little hope, you know. We said, you don't know yet, but it was just, you know, you'd never forget the voice in the phone if they were there in person.
Something that stays with you, I'm sure. And how about you?
One of the things you brought me to talk about family is, I might get choked up there, that's gonna be fine. I came home, I guess first day I came home was about 5 days after. I just crashed with the pillow with alcohol in the afternoon. And I woke up to my daughter running up the stairs, just crushed me. Yeah, that kind of support, that kind of love, that helped.
Captain Duffy, thank you for sharing that. I mean, and a lot of these stories that you all have are so deeply personal, and we appreciate you, you know, trusting us and sharing that with us, because it certainly gives us a greater understanding. We are getting close to the time that these guys have to get back and do some more tours, so you're going to be lucky. But I want to give each of these guys a chance to maybe give any thoughts, or if you have any questions you'd like to ask these guys about that. I would love to just open that up and let you all have an opportunity, because I think it's such a unique experience that we have our local first responders right here with the FDNY, those guys who were right there at ground zero.
You know, I think it hit on something that's never really talked about, that the job never stopped. You know, the other calls, the other EMS runs, the other fires, all of the other things that were happening in New York City that you can imagine were still going on. And so, you know, those calls never really stopped either. And so to be able to not only pick up, you know, the detail that they had to do to try to bring their brothers and sisters home, you know, they also had a community to serve. And to be able to balance that across, you know, all of those first responders and just take on that task is, you know, is really today what just that impactfulness of that comment was big.
I appreciate that perspective, because I think during that time, there was so much coverage just on everything that was happening, you kind of forget that they had to balance that with all of the other stuff as well. Tony, anything come to your mind?
I just want to say thank you, one, to Heroes Defense, Travis and Garrett, for the work you guys have done here within the community and continuing that, and then obviously thank you, you gentlemen. It's not the first time y'all have been out here, so I think to continue to see that, I just thinks that speaks volumes to what you guys do, the hearts that you have, and I really appreciate the fact that you do come here and share your stories, and just continue with that, because I think that's just an amazing tribute in and of itself. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tony. And Stephen, from representing the Ammon Fire Department, and won't be long before we'll have a memorial there.
Perfect, yes indeed. Again, thanks Travis, you know, for kind of organizing everything. Like you said, we kind of worked that through, so that was really good for them. You know, like Chief Nelson was saying, you know, just the sheer amount of you know, will and determination, you know, that was shown on that day is huge, right? You know, we call it in the fire service brotherhood, right? And it's alive and well. As you go to any fire station, and like you're immediately welcomed in. And so I hope you guys feel the same, you know, coming here. Definitely appreciate you guys and all the time you guys put in for this. So.
I'd just like to say one thing, for the people of Idaho. I mean, they look at us as heroes, okay? And one day we've accumulated a lot of bad memories, you know, but your local police department, your local fire departments, they see it all the time. And they have their ghosts that they live with, you know, but they do what they have to do. It happens. You go to a bad accident, you know, a child dies, you live with all of that. But the next day, you get up and you go there, and that next child maybe you save, and the next child something else, or the next car accident, the next car that you pull over, the young kid who was driving erratically, maybe you stopped him from, you know, getting killed in another auto accident. You know, firefighters, police officers, wherever they are the heroes. Unsung, they don't want to, they're not looking for the praise, they just do the job that they have to do. So I think it's only right that, you know, we acknowledge you guys. Thank you very much.
And thank you for sharing that, because that's something I continue to see, and I'm always amazed, is that our local first responders don't want the spotlight. They don't want any of that. They just do what they do out of that commitment, and they certainly deserve all of our appreciation. Garrett, how about you?
It's great to see, you know, all the different agencies, departments come together, and I was thinking too, in the exhibit, there's a picture of a police officer, a fireman, a member of the public banding together to carry a gentleman out. And I think that embodies what we're here today. We have police, fire, rescue, and the public. There were a lot of heroes that were there that day that were just members of the public pulling people out of rubble, pulling people out of buildings. And again, that embodies the mission here, is that we've got the community stepping arm in arm with our first responders to move forward. And so that's, again, why we're here, why Heroes of Defense exists, is to help bring those things together, show the first responders who are on the front line. You have a defensive public behind you, especially in this area, maybe not in other places in the country, but you do have that here. So that's something that we all can have pride in.
That visual is so powerful, thinking about that. And I think that really does kind of sum it up. It's the fact that it takes all of us, and it takes remembering that we're all on the same team, and being grateful and supportive and doing what we can where we are. Chief Johnson, how about you?
You mentioned earlier about why remember, and talking about why remember, and I've been thinking about that since you said that. And I think it's because it causes us to be different as human beings, and hopefully we take something incredibly tragic and make something good out of it. And not gonna make a joke, that would be important, but I got called on the phone a while back by a telemarketer that was soliciting money for some police charity. And I said, well, what do you do? And they said, we do all these things for police departments. I was like, I've never heard of you, and I have no idea if you are, so I'm not gonna give you any of my money. Because I never got anything from them, right? And I didn't know. The reason I mention that is tunnels to towers. I have friends, I have people I knew, I have colleagues whose families have been so blessed and benefited by tunnels to towers. And so these gentlemen and the people with them took something incredibly tragic, and they have made something incredibly positive that is benefiting people I know in 3 different states. And I'm so grateful for what they did to take this huge tragedy and become better human beings and pay it as something good going forward, because they are helping families out. It's a tremendous organization.
I really appreciate that you're highlighting that increased humanity, because that is something that the world could use a whole lot more of all of the time. And Travis?
You know, I think there's just one thing that kind of sticks out for me that I think is worth mentioning. you know, you talk to these guys, 9/11 was a horrible day, and like anything bad, right, you kind of look for whatever good you can find, and there wasn't a lot, not a whole lot, but, and that was some of the stuff when I first started talking to people in New York City was, you know, 9/11 was horrible and 9/12 was amazing, right? And it's because, like you said, what do you get good out of that, right? Where can you find the good, especially when you're dealing with so much, you know, so much loss and so much pain and so much trauma, how do you deal with that? And so ever I talked to people through that, they watched, as these guys are digging through the pile, you know, they're watching the steel workers come in and cut the steel to help them out. They're watching the fire departments and retirees, you know, in fact, we have a coat of one of the retired firefighters that have been retired for I don't know how many years, put his old gear back on and came back in. And so to see that community and the whole country, and I said this before, had the first responders not done what they did that day and represent the character that is the American spirit, I think the response that we had as a country would have been far different. Had that actually driven fear into the first responders, and not to the point that they didn't respond and they didn't stand up and they didn't make those sacrifices, you know, we wouldn't have had Toby Keith saying, "Put a boot in your ass," you know, and you know, part of the joke, but that's the power that came back out of that, is we saw them take that sacrifice, and we saw the country stand behind them and say, "Screw you, we're not afraid. This is who we are," and those guys made a sacrifice, and here we stand. And so anyway, so I bring that up because it was such a powerful moment, but across the country, you know, these guys live it every day, and they're still losing friends from that. Most people aren't aware of that, but after 9/11, you know, the firefighters and the first responders that ran in there collectively, they didn't have PPE. That wasn't even the closest thing on the line. They were running in, right? And so they breathed in stuff that isn't good, and they absorbed things, and they dealt with things that to this day are dealing with cancers and lung and all sorts of, you know, things that these guys are losing friends for a week still. I think there was 2 funerals last week and one.
Two last week. We buried one Thursday. We buried one Sunday.
Yeah.
And the other one will be Friday.
So
We currently have about, what is the number of cancer?
30,000 people have certified 9/11 cancer, and out of that 30,000, 30% have at least 2 different types of cancers.
And so you look, one thing Kevin brought years ago that was, I think, a good representation that helps understand that is, you know, we had better PPE for COVID than we did for 9/11, right? And it worked just as well. So part of the fun, I had to put that down.
That was good.
So during that period of time, you know, these guys went in there. It was to hell with everything. You know, I got whatever tools I got, and I'm going to go save lives as best I can. And they're still losing those people. And so to watch them still lose people from these that made those sacrifices 23 years ago, to still be dealing with that, and to see the decline in national support and the diversity, or I should say the vision that's happening in our country, you know, to see it progress from that down and lose that is not only, you know, painful in many ways, but also difficult to say we remembered and to see that. And so every one of these guys, is where I want to give, you know, that whole long lengthy explanation, I want to give props to our community, our first responders, because they create the community and the community creates them, I think, in the way we interact. And every person we brought out here, I think we've now brought 7, 8 different groups of people out from New York City.
Probably,
Yeah. 7 or 8 different guys that have come out here for our events, right, Garrett? And every one of them has told me what a beautiful community we have, and they felt that spirit of that again. And I think that by itself, you know, when they come out here, it's funny because we thank them for what you guys do when you come out. But when you guys, even yesterday, were thanking me, and I'm thinking to myself, like, thank you. Like, all we did was, you know, pay the ticket. You guys are putting all the work and coming out here. But, you know, for you guys to come out and share that and see that, I think that is where we talk about how we get our back on track and how we do that, how we keep a community. It's by making sure that 9/12 mindset, that respected that character of that day, lives on in our community, in our generations, how we educate our children. And that's how we get the kids growing up that want to be a firefighter or a policeman and so forth. So I just want to give our community a lot of props. We see it at our events, but we see it, I mean, we see it every day around here. We all have our bad stuff that happens every day, but holistically, you know, every person in New York City that's come here has shared that they feel that again, and I think that's what is a nice little gift we get to give when they go home.
Well, we are all out of time because these guys are going to be giving some more tours very shortly. If you haven't had a chance to get out to the mobile museum, you really don't want to miss that opportunity. And then tomorrow, don't forget, at the Idaho Falls Fire Department, 10 a.m., the unveiling of that incredible 9/11 memorial, and then at 6 p.m. at the waterfront, a special ceremony right there by that mobile museum. So a lot of opportunities for us to pause and remember these heroes.
Just a quick statement. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock, it's a hard closing of the museum. That the museum has to be closed up tomorrow night and has to be on the road by 4 a.m. to get to New Jersey by Saturday, so we can do this in another community. But we personally want to thank the whole community of Idaho Falls, Ammon. Whether or not I say it right, I don't know.
It was a mon until this morning.
For the courtesy and the privilege of coming out here once again on Patriots Day.
Well, it is an honor to have all of you around this table, and I think the conversation has been so powerful. So KID crew, be sure to share this with those who weren't able to hear it, because these kinds of stories are the stories that have the power to really make a difference and help us live up to that commitment to never forget. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you out at the memorial on that special ceremony at the waterfront.